So I've always been very passionate about the environment and making a positive impact on the environment. And that passion, I think, really runs through our company in total. And I've always had an interest in that and had the opportunity to join the business in a supply management function. My background is in global supply chain integration and had the opportunity to join FuellCell Energy. And for the past 21 years have really and sincerely enjoyed helping to build this business and to proliferate our technology to make a real significant and profound impact on the world.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast. I am really excited to have Mike Lisowski on, Executive Vice President and COO of FuellCell Energy. Mike, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Ari.
Well, listen, Mike, it's a Made in America podcast, so we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
Ari, we are in the business of decarbonizing, electrification, and producing hydrogen. And the reason that we do that is directly linked to our purpose, which is to enable a life empowered by clean energy.
There we go, going green on the Made in America podcast today. Well, listen, Mike, I think, FuellCell Energy has actually been around for a long time. We talk about green technology as being something sort of, I think people think of it as more newer, more sort of cutting edge, and it is all those things. But FuellCell has actually got a pretty long history here in Connecticut. I don't know if everyone in the audience knows that. So maybe we could start by sort of talking a little bit about the organizational history.
We do, yes. We have a long history of being in the state of Connecticut. In fact, we started our business in 1969, primarily as a research and development company, building our technology around our carbonate platform. And then in 2003, we sited our first commercial unit actually in Japan with Kirin Brewery. We have a deep history in research and development, both from an electrification standpoint and generation of heat. And we work across a variety of different technologies and integrate a variety of technologies to create our value streams.
Very cool. Well, listen, I want to talk a little bit about some of the technology, some of the details, where we're going, how sort of hydrogen power fits into the whole sort of green economy, or if you want to call it that. But let's get a little personal first, Mike. How did you get to FuellCell, and how's your journey get you here?
So I've always been very passionate about the environment and making a positive impact on the environment. And that passion, I think, really runs through our company in total. And I've always had an interest in that and had the opportunity to join the business in a supply management function. My background is in global supply chain integration and had the opportunity to join FuellCell Energy. And for the past 21 years have really and sincerely enjoyed helping to build this business and to proliferate our technology to make a real significant and profound impact on the world.
What, in terms of in the business itself, and maybe help the audience understand, what does an EVP and COO at FuellCell do? What is sort of your engagement with the business? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so my span of responsibility is really around the primary operational aspects of our value chain. We have an integrated operating model, and really the way to think about it is it begins with customer engagement and really understanding that we have solidification of customer requirements and understand the energy challenges that our customers are facing. And that converts into commercializing platforms, which we proliferate. And under my span of control, that's really where the operations piece begins, making sure that we've got good staged gate engineering release processes, and that's run by our commercial engineering team. We have, I also have responsibility for our supply chain organization, which is responsible for qualifying all of our direct material suppliers and all of our equipment suppliers. We have a in-state, and we have actually multiple manufacturing sites, but our largest manufacturing facility is located here in Connecticut, in Torrington, Connecticut. And that is where we manufacture and produce our core SureSource technology. We also leverage contract manufacturing for our mechanical equipment and work very closely with turnkey electrical equipment providers. We also, in our integrated operations model, we also manage all of our site construction. So wherever we build our projects and wherever we engage and work in our applications in the field, we manage end-to-end all of the site civil construction through our valued EPC partners, and we manage all of the process through commercial operations. And then we also have a service operations team, which is responsible for managing the service of the plants and assets over their useful life.
It's complicated, right? There's a lot going on. So maybe let's take a different approach and sort of talk about what are the projects, like what someone use FuellCell Energy for? Maybe even start before that. What is it?
Sure. So we have a carbonate platform that is essentially an electrochemical process, and we take in any type of we have a wide variety of fuel flexibility. We can run off of natural gas, which is a typical application for us, but we also have the ability to run off of anaerobic digester gas or fuel that comes from methane that comes from a wastewater treatment facility.
I just want to ask a question. So I think when people think of like green energy, right, they're often thinking about solar power or wind power. So how does FuellCell sort of fit into that if we're talking about using natural gas as the fuel source? Like help the audience sort of understand.
Sure. So we have the capability through our electrochemical process to take in a variety of fuel. It could even be biomass or biogas.
Biogas. There you go.
And take that fuel, combine it with air and water, and convert it into a very low emissions power generation product that's typically used in heat and power applications, but we also have the ability to make hydrogen and capture CO2.
So let's just kind of talk that through a little bit. So the application would be, I want to generate heat.
It could be. It could be. We have a variety of flexible value streams that we can provide. Perhaps I can give you some examples of where we're sited around the state of Connecticut. So we have 13 sites that have 18 platforms operating, and place locations and applications like universities were installed at Central Connecticut State University, University of Bridgeport, Trinity College. We have applications that are supporting industry. So we have 2 plants operating at Pepperidge Farm, as well as Pfizer in Groton, Connecticut, two of our platforms that are operating there. We're also playing a big part in the resiliency of our infrastructure as we're building 2 plants at the U.S. Naval Base in Groton, Connecticut to support their future automated microgrid capabilities. And we're also operating one of the largest fuel cells in the United States in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where we're providing electrification for about 15,000 homes connected to the grid.
So let's just take like one example. If we can, I don't know if you can speak super specifics, but maybe to make the point. So you mentioned, say, Trinity College. So just pick one. So like, what was sort of the use case? Like, what was the problem they were trying to solve?
Yeah, the problem that they're trying to solve there is essentially is supply guarantee. So they're looking for surety of continuity of supply of electrification, and also looking to reduce their costs. And those are the 2 value streams.
So they're concerned about, so sort of almost like you would have a backup generator. They're concerned that the regular power grid might not be able to supply the power. So they want certainty that no matter what happens to the grid, they can get power to these particular places.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. Although I would characterize it a little differently in that we're not a backup power source. We're not a backup generator. We are a baseload power source, distributed baseload power source. So we install our application, and it's that product that generates electricity to provide the baseload power for the campus, which is then supplemented by the grid. And if there is, we do have applications such as in the town of Woodbridge, Connecticut, where we have an integrated microgrid. So we have our platform operating, which is supporting, so if there is loss of grid power, there will be supply continuity of electricity to the high school, to the emergency services, to the town hall and public works buildings.
And the idea then is, I want to get my primary generation from a fuel cell versus the grid, because I want to make sure that I'm going to have the power. That's one thing.
Yes.
And you're saying there's a cost benefit.
There is. We can be very cost competitive depending on really the energy challenges that our end users and markets are trying to solve. And that's really something that, depending on the geographic region, and our business domestically in the U.S. is really at this point bifurcated between the East Coast and West Coast, but we are growing out our business and our global footprint, and also our products are installed in Europe and in Asia, and specifically in South Korea.
Gotcha. And so when I'm looking at it, we talked about sort of the power surety, we talked about some of the cost. Let's talk about the green impact. So what makes FuellCell Energy more environmentally friendly than, I don't know, natural, well, everything's cleaner than coal, I suppose, but, cleaner than, say, a natural gas power plant or diesel generator or whatever?
There's a variety of different ways that our very flexible carbonate platform can be used. And maybe a way to highlight an example is an application that we're currently in construction out in Long Beach, California, and that is supporting a project with Toyota. So Toyota is producing the Mirai vehicles with fuel cell powered vehicles that are going to be using hydrogen as their fuel source. So those vehicles are being produced and manufactured in Japan and brought into the United States through the Port of Long Beach. We are installing one platform at that site that is going to provide 3 value streams for Toyota. We're going to provide the electricity for all of their facilities that are operating out there at the Port of Long Beach. We're going to be providing high-quality hot water, and as we know, there is a water shortage in California, and so we'll be generating water that will be used for the car washing facilities, which will clean the vehicles before they're shipped to the dealerships, and we'll also be producing 1,200 kilograms of hydrogen per day, which will be the fuel source to fuel those vehicles up because they cannot be shipped across the ocean with fuel in the cars.
And so the hydrogen is made as a byproduct of the energy creation process?
That is correct, and we call that our tri-generation product. We also have applications where we can implement carbon capture, and that's the important work that we're doing with ExxonMobil Corporation. So because we're a carbonate fuel cell and we consume CO2 in the process, we have the unique capability and differentiated value stream where we can capture flue gas from a natural gas-fired refinery, let's say, take that flue gas, capture the CO2, and either sequester it or convert it and purify it for food and beverage grade use. And while doing that, we're also a net energy generator, adding electrification to the grid as opposed to a parasitic load, whereas other carbon capture technologies require a lot of electricity.
So just to pull on that thread for like a little bit, what you're saying is I got a factory, I'm releasing CO2 into the atmosphere from like a burn or whatever. And so instead of just releasing to the atmosphere, you're saying there's a way to capture that, put it into one of the devices or products you guys have, and then turn that into carbonation and power for the facility?
That is exactly correct.
How big does a facility have to be to sort of have positive ROI on that?
So the facility that we're building in Long Beach is a 2.3 megawatt power plant. So it doesn't have to be very big.
That's not big. See, I don't know, in the power business, that's,
Well, when you think about large-scale power generation assets, they're typically in the hundreds of megawatts scale. So, our distributed platform is scalable and can grow by combining multiple platforms together. But the application at the port, which we do believe will be replicable in other locations for Toyota and other mobility applications for hydrogen generation, has a fairly small footprint.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little about like sort of the business outlook and sort of what's happening with FuellCell. So I know it's been a ride, right? Anytime you're kind of dealing with new technology and pioneering, it's going to be a bit of a ride. So maybe sort of explain the history a little bit of that ride and where we are today and what the outlook looks like.
Our trajectory, let me back up a little bit here. So our business really started with proliferating our technology to generate field experience. So we deployed units in the field, operated those units to gain some industrial experience, and that was in the early 2000s. Our business migrated
like a proof of concept type of
essentially, and demonstration of the technology and learning out, through the industrial learning curve, things that you can only really learn, beyond the laboratory or beyond demonstration units. And so with that body of knowledge, we scaled up our business and really grew our carbonate platform and proliferated it globally. And as many technologies in this space, it's you're competing with a variety of different macro factors, grid power, pricing, a variety of alternative power generation sources. And so we've had to be very resourceful and be focused on continuous improvement to maximize the value creation, extending the life of our platform, increasing the power output and the resiliency and the rigor of our platforms, and have enjoyed most recently significant business growth and shift in support of the energy landscape shift. And
what is that? When you say say the energy landscape shift, what does that mean?
Really thinking beyond, traditional power generation sources. So although many people are familiar with renewables such as wind and solar, those technologies are fantastic, but they're not significant enough to really solve our overall global climate challenges. And so there is a technology gap that exists, and fuel cells really play a pivotal part in bridging that gap and future-proofing for the needs of the future of our planet.
Can you elaborate on that point?
Yeah, so we have the unique capability today to be able to generate, as I mentioned, combined heat and power, or hydrogen, or carbon capture. But as we move forward and we commercialize other derivative products, which we're actively working on, we see ourselves playing an integral part in extending the value of existing renewables, things like implementing long duration energy storage, which is a real challenge. And so where intermittent power like wind when the wind isn't blowing, or solar when the sun is not shining, we can integrate our fuel cell to be complementary to those other renewables. And we're looking at a host of other exciting opportunities around other existing power generation assets where we can combine and integrate our fuel cells to extend the life of those assets, reduce their current emissions profile, and really lend itself towards environmentally friendly applications.
How has the technology changed over the last 20 years? What is it able to do today that it wasn't doing 20 years ago? You mentioned lessons learned, how to generate more output. Like, what are some of the key differentiators if someone had a fuel cell in 2005 and now like in 2022? What would they see as a difference?
I'd say one of the biggest differences would be capacity and uptime availability. We have very robust performance in that regard. We have significantly driven our product cost curve, which is an important element to compete. And we've also added a lot of value in terms of extending product life and power output. Over that period of time, that horizon that you mentioned, we've advanced from a 3-year product life of our core technology to a 5-year, and have extended now to a commercial 7-year product, and working on advancements beyond that.
So as you think about sort of growing the business going forward, do you feel like the macro trends are kind of at your back, kind of in your favor?
Yeah, there's certainly, as we sit here today, there's certainly several headwinds, but I do believe that the tailwinds are in our favor, and we're working to really leverage that. We have multiple value streams that we bring into our business. So not only engaging in the sale of product and equipment into the marketplace, but we do also operate a host of assets that are on our balance sheet and that we operate out of our generation portfolio. And we also have value streams coming in through service and license revenue. So we feel that we're very well positioned for growth. And given the tailwinds behind the shift in the energy landscape and the broadening of our global footprint, we feel very, very, very positive about the future.
That's great. What does the workforce look like here in Connecticut? What does that look like today?
Yeah, so globally we have 414 people, and we're actively growing. In fact, just as of this morning, we had 78 open positions across the business, and that's in a variety of different functions. So we are growing fairly rapidly. In Connecticut, we have a little over 100 people working at our manufacturing facility in Torrington, Connecticut, and company-wide, we have about 230 here that are residing in the state. And we're really looking to grow our talent bench and bench strength across a variety of functions, from advanced manufacturing positions on the shop floor all the way up through leadership positions and technology and engineering positions, administrative roles, all throughout the business as we're growing.
So everything's going on. Talk about, you mentioned advanced manufacturing. I mean, is there a lot of pretty advanced manufacturing and how these things are being built in Torrington? And like, what does that sort of process look like? Yeah,
we have been very thoughtful about our production system design, and really have a leading edge manufacturing process that has extremely high rolling throughput yield. We have been very thoughtful about how to create the architecture for our production system, and have really focused on what's core to us. So we do have a very, very strong engagement with our supply chain, and that's critical. We view our supply chain as an extension of our business.
Sure.
We bring those direct materials into our factory in Torrington, and we use 5 different major processes to convert those materials into a finished good product. So we have a complete integrated facility in Torrington, and operations like welding, like sintering, tape casting, assembly, to just name a few.
Gotcha. And what is like the R&D? What does the R&D stuff look like? I mean, you're constantly talking about product innovation, so you must have a pretty healthy like R&D team and engineering team working on the future.
We do. We have a host of engineering teams working both at our Torrington facility, our Calgary, Canada facility, our Danbury headquarters, and in Taufkirchen, Germany, just outside of Munich. And those teams are all focused on a variety of complementary areas of focus. Continuous improvement, safety, all being paramount to the business, but looking to really proliferate derivative value streams from our products. We've got a host of teams looking at how to optimize the business in terms of overall efficiency and really looking to help the business scale with our replicable model.
So, I mean, I know you must be facing, but in all your facilities, like the recruiting challenges, right? So when you're growing at the pace you are with all these open recs, how are you guys thinking about recruiting and retention?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I'm proud to say that although we have faced some headwinds with regard to hiring. Given the core business that we're focused on, there's some inherent exciting aspects of joining our team, and we have a really a tenured group of team members, some of which have been with the company for 40 years, and so there's a lot of passion in our business. And given the profound impact that we're trying to make on the world, there's a lot of momentum behind people wanting to work in our business. So we have enjoyed that and been able to really leverage that. However, that's not where it stops. We've had to get really creative and have really relooked at our whole human capital system in the way that we attract and draw talent. We've done things like broaden flexibility in terms of work arrangements. So where people can work remote or have hybrid working arrangements, we have embraced that. Looking to expand creatively our benefits packages and of course compensation. All of these things being key going into the quality of career development and being an attractive place to work.
When you're like in your position sort of in operations and executive vice president, how do you guys sort of think about, being in a new technology, having so many opportunities to do this and to do that? How do you think about which opportunities to follow, which ones to sort of say, look, that's a great idea, but we got to shelve that for now because we got to see this thing through? How do you guys think about that?
So we have a very rigorous and integrated team, and there's a strong degree of collaboration. So we have an internally led product team which evaluates markets, opportunities, and this is really cuts across all of the executive leadership team, including down to management. And it's this integrated team that considers and looks at strategy for the business as we work to refine our strategies, given the trends that we see in various markets and various use cases. A lot of voice of the customer and listening to what the markets are saying and what energy challenges our customers are facing and our prospective customers are facing. And it's with all of that input that we put together thoughtful strategies and plans for what we elect not to work on and where we focus our time and efforts, because of course that's critically important.
Yeah, and was that an ongoing kind of evaluation process? I mean, it just seems like something that's so critical to what you guys are trying to achieve.
It is. It's ongoing and very dynamic, right? As you can imagine, and it's a very closely aligned team that thinks through these challenges and how we position the business for growth. And I'd say that in this period of time, there's a lot of exciting and dynamic conversations around how we grow our business thoughtfully and sustainably in looking to add value to our customers and solving their energy problems.
So there's a lot of manufacturers in Connecticut that I think do some stuff internationally. I mean, clearly you guys are among that group. Like, how do you think about sort of navigating the challenges of doing sort of onshore and offshore work, especially in a scenario where it's not just sort of sell it and forget it, but sell it, maintain it. How do you guys think about managing that?
Yeah, we have a pretty deep perspective on that. So we just to start with, from a supply chain perspective, we are largely U.S. centered. So about 85% of our content comes from the United States, with the balance coming from abroad. So we have taken a very, very careful view at thoughtful view of how we've grown our supply chain to mitigate global threats and risks and put in countermeasures to offset that. Local content is an important part of growing business, so we do very, very carefully evaluate supply partners in regions where we look to grow our business, and then deploy localization efforts very, very specifically to help grow that localized content, to help supply chain efficiencies or manufacturing efficiencies, and help grow our business in those regions.
So like when you put a fuel cell in South Korea or Japan, are you typically supporting that?
Yeah, so from an ongoing, once the plant has achieved commercial operations, our business is structured to monitor these plants. Our platforms do not have an on-site operator, so there is no individuals there that are operating the plant. What we do have is a very unique centralized global monitoring and control center located here in Connecticut, where we remotely monitor and operate all of our plants, and that's on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis. And then complementary to that, we have geographically, regionally located field service team members that work for our company that are dispatchable from that global monitoring control center should any on-site physical work be required. And we have approximately a 4-hour response time to any of those sites. So that's how we've organically built our business to this point in supporting those long-term assets in the field.
How do you think about managing? So you sort of have a manufacturing business, you've got a research and development business, and you sort of have a support business. Those all kind of roll up to you, and how do you kind of think about managing those different aspects?
So the way our business is structured is we have a chief technology officer that manages our advanced technology group, and they're really the team that builds the core technology around demonstration and around project work. And where my organization picks up responsibility is the commercialization of those products. So where we've made a conscious decision to say we're going to go to market with this. This is the marketing strategy. This is the time to market. This is the profile of our demand curve and how we need to support that going forward from a fulfillment perspective, and then all the way through long-term service of those assets.
So actually, you really kind of touched on something I was a little bit interested in, and I wonder how that's evolved over time, which is what is sort of the go-to-market? I wonder if initially there was a lot of go-to-market time being spent educating, right? Like, what is this? And have we evolved past that to where most people know what it is? Are we still in that sort of education process? Like, kind of what is the go-to-market from a fuel cell perspective?
Yeah, you've touched on a probably somewhat of a subtle but very critically important point. And I will just say, in my tenure and perspective over, our awareness of our product and our platform, we've gone from a place where we were purely in an education mode and demonstration mode to now where there is far more market awareness and understanding of fuel cell technology. But by far, we are not out of the business of educating, because we're continuing to advance the value streams from our product and educating our markets and customers as to the different value streams that we can provide and how we can solve those challenges. So we're still on that journey of education and proliferation of our technology and an understanding behind it. But as we do that, we are seeing significant momentum as that awareness, as those referenceable installations are continuing to perform. There's a lot of inertia and momentum behind that, and we're starting to see that really take hold, where there's a lot more inbound interest than outbound go-to-market strategies. And we have a direct sales force, global sales force, that we're continuing to build on, but also very keenly aware of and looking to develop strategic relationships and partnerships globally through through channel partners, through strategic types of arrangements, and looking to explore also inorganic opportunities to grow.
So what's the difference between like a direct approach and then a partnership approach? Like who are sort of your partners that would go to market as opposed to buying direct?
Can you just?
Yeah, well, you said you've got two different strategies, right? You said one is sort of selling direct, and one is sort of going through partners, and I think you had even said there were some licensing opportunities. So what does that look like? Like, what's the differential?
Yeah, so the direct sales model would be either pursuing opportunities either that are utility scale and grid connected, or behind the meter at an individual end user. So those are our two direct models are through that, and we do participate in a variety of utility scale projects as well as end use customers. Through licensing partners, technology would be deployed to a certain geographic region, and that particular partner may or may not have sales and business development responsibility for that region, and they would work very closely with our team.
So it's kind of wrapped into a bigger project that they're working on. So it's not sort of a one-off. They're bringing it as part of the overall project. So it's sort of baked into whatever it is the overall project.
I think that's a fair way to think about it. And and we're far from complete in our vision and the way that we're thinking about this. We're early in that process, as some of the regions of growth are new to us, and we're expanding our global footprint. So looking to create, strategic alliances with a variety of different firms globally to help us with growing our business rapidly. We're really seeking business growth with accelerated velocity.
That's great. I mean, look, there's just so much going on. I know we're a little bit kind of running out of time, but I just wonder, like, what in your vision, if we can achieve what we want to achieve with FuellCell Energy, what does like the world look like with you guys kind of moving forward? What's your role in the overall kind of power generation and green? What does that look like?
Our future state outcome, desired future state outcome, is to really provide our power generation and decarbonization products globally to stem the tide between the technology gap that exists today and where we need to be to meet our global climate objectives. And there is a real important part that FuellCell Energy can play in that future state. And we believe that we will be part of that distributed power generation model and critical part to the infrastructure of the United States and globally.
That's awesome, man. Well, Mike, it's fun hearing about it. There's like so much going on. Really appreciate the time. I want to move us to rapid fire round of questions and we'll wrap it up. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right, man, here we go. Red Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox.
Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Starbucks.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Staycation.
Sports car or SUV?
Sports car.
Do you have a favorite business book?
Good to Great.
Oh, that's a good one. If you had to do something other than be the executive vice president and COO at FuellCell, it could be anything in the whole wide world, what would you do?
President of FuellCell Energy.
There you go. Guess if the president's listening, we know who's hunting for that job. What's something, Mike, that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
Ari, I'd have to say that creating genuine relationships is probably the biggest lesson that can be applicable to any aspect of business. Really making an investment in people and in relationships, whether it be internal to your business or externally facing with your stakeholders, it is really critical, because at the end of the day, things are not really going to always go smoothly. And when they don't, typically problems are solved between people. And so having those strong foundational relationships has really served me personally in my career and the businesses that I have worked for really well, especially in times of challenge.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Everything's about relationships, right? Who you know, not what you know. What's one thing that you learned later in your career, later in your life, that if you went back and told young Mike and he'd listened to you, you think have a real profound impact on him?
I would say being a very careful listener. Something in the speed of which business operates, things are moving quite rapidly. And oftentimes, I would say people, and myself included early on in my career, you hear a little bit of a topic or a story, and you've instantly coalesced it in your mind as thinking that you understand the whole thing and you've got it figured out and you're ready to move on to the solution. And it takes time, and you really have to take time to get the details to truly formulate. And so I believe that being a conscious and careful listener is critically important. And that's something that if I had to go back, I might spend more time and focus and attention on that. Yeah.
A little bit of that 2 ears, 1 mouth proportional thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, man, it was really awesome chatting with you and hearing about the new technology. Certainly rooting for you guys and look forward to hear more about it in the future.
Thanks, Ari. Very much. It was a pleasure.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by CompassMSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.